As we approach the end of our spring semester here in college, one of the important things to think about is what is housing going to look like for next year. Unfortunately, for us college students, one of the most important things that we have to look at is price. When looking for a price, I would consider looking at something that's between the $600 to $800 range. Of course, this may differ depending on what university you're at. Some may be higher if you're living in a busier city, and some may be lower if you're living in an area where there's no business at all. From my personal experience, in order to ensure that I got a good deal, I was looking at stuff around the $600 to $800 range. When I was looking at housing, something that I was looking for and that I would often consider is price. Were utilities included or not? Make sure that if utilities are not included in your rent, that you know and are aware of an estimate cost of how much they would be. Also, I would ask and see if you have to go get your utilities by yourself, as in you have to set up your own account and have it run through there, or if it can be run through the apartment complex. Make sure you're looking at all utilities required, like washing and drying if there's a washer and dryer in your complex, or if you have to go outside and use coins to use the washer and dryer, as well as looking at sewer, water, and electricity. If it's split between you and your roommate or you're living alone, make sure to consider that as well. Another thing to look at is furnishing. Some complexes have furnished already included in their rent, so make sure if that's possible that you look at it and you have all the materials for that. Some require you to get your own furniture, and some have it to where you can pay an extra $25 to receive furniture or not. If you're looking at getting your own furniture, I would consider not getting new furniture at all and looking at like hand-me-down furniture, or going to like a flea market or any other type of store where you might find furniture that may be a little worn but not too worn. That way you can save some money with furniture. Another thing to consider when you're looking at furnishing your own apartment is how you're going to get the furniture down there. That costs a lot of money. Moving trucks really do. If you can take it on your own, or if you can gradually move it down there, that's also something to consider to maybe cut down on the cost. Are there extra fees included when signing? Is there a deposit? Do you need to have insurance? Is there an extra parking fee? Is there a pet fee? Make sure that you look at that as well. If you're bringing a car on campus or driving yourself, or if there's a bus, you can think about that as well. If there's a bus to and from campus, from your complex or house, make sure you think about that. If you can walk everywhere, think about that as well, or if you need to drive. Think about what that cost may look like in total of how much it would cost living off campus. These are all really good things to think about when looking off campus. Finance is one of the most important things to think about, unfortunately, as college students. But those are just some of my tips and things to consider when looking at an off-campus apartment. Another thing to look at when you're considering off-campus living is safety. Is the apartment you're looking at or house in a safe area? Make sure you ask whoever gives you a tour or the leasing office if there's a lot of crime in that area. If they are unsure or if they can't give you a certain statistic, call the local police and see if you're in an area of huge crime or not. Another thing to think about along the lines of safety are your neighbors. Are you living with other college students? Are you living with families? Are you living with adults? Make sure that you're living in an area where you feel safe and where you are not afraid that your neighbors or anybody else would come in and be disruptive to safe living. Another thing to think of is if you have a vehicle, make sure that it's safe outside. If there are random people coming in your complex, or if there's a lot of visitors, make sure that your vehicle can be safe and you can be compensated. Like if there are cameras, so that way if you get hit, you can see the camera violators. Another thing to think about is the guest policy. Does this allow for someone that's not paying rent to just come live in your apartment complex, or do they have procedures and check-in processes that ensure that people can only be there for a certain amount of time? One of the last things to think about is, do you need to purchase an insurance policy? If something gets broken or damaged that you may not be able to pay, make sure you have insurance so that the apartment doesn't make you responsible for paying a huge amount of money that you may not have. Another thing that you can think about along the range of price is deals. Are there any deals going on? Some complexes have deals and other things going on to make sure that all of their apartments are filled up. Think about the deal and see if it is just for the first month, for the first 6 months, or if it's for the whole year. Another thing to think about, which is kind of going into the future though, is if you really like the place you're living and you have a deal, ask if you renew your lease that you get that same deal, so to help save some money. Always get an estimate of how much it's going to cost, whether that be at signing or for the whole year in general. Some places have it to where your deposit fee is waived when you sign a deal and some do not, so make sure you know the upfront cost as well as the yearly cost. Another thing to think about is the payment policy. Make sure if they have monthly payment or if you pay up front. See if there's a payment plan that you can be on and how often that due date is. If it's at the beginning of the month or towards the end of the month, make sure you're aware of when the payments need to happen. Also consider what type of payment you have to get. If it's online, if it's through check, make sure that if it's online you know the fees included with it, or if it's through a check, make sure you know where to bill it and how the policy is. It may be that you have to have your check mailed by the 10th or it has to be there by the 10th. Just make sure you know how the payment's getting there and make sure it's getting on time to avoid late fees. If you really like a complex and it's out of your price range, consider asking for a position on the team or if there's anything you could do to help lower the cost. The worst they can say is no. I personally, at every complex I looked, asked if they had any positions available or if they were looking for workers. That's a really simple way to just see if you can get some money off, as well as be in a situation where it's very convenient. You're living where you're working. When considering living off campus, make sure that you're living with someone that you are aware of. Some places have roommate matching, and if you're not too hard to live with, that's something to consider. But make sure you're in a situation and in a living situation where you're okay. And another thing to really think about when you're looking at a place is how is the maintenance. If you send in a maintenance report for something that's broken, do they come immediately the next day or does it take forever? I've had a lot of stories of people that had maintenance problems that never got fixed. Make sure that that's something that you're fully aware of, because you could be charged for something that is broken even though no one came to fix it. So make sure that that's something that you're looking at, is how good is the maintenance and the service. Thank you so much for watching my off-campus living video, and I'm so happy to be talking about all these things. Some of the pro tips would be make sure the finance is good and you know how much it costs. Make sure you have a good price. Along the lines of that, see if there are any deals going on. Some of these deals knock off the rent by $200 or more. So make sure that that's something you're considering. Also think about safety. Insurance policy is in a good area. Is it gated or not? Make sure that you know what the safety policy is and that you're in a safe place. And another thing to think about is just, can you live there? Is the space good for you? Is the furniture up to date? Are the appliances up to date? Make sure you're not in a situation where if something gets broken, it can't get fixed, or if it's old and you think it's gonna break. Maintenance is also really important. Make sure that there's a good maintenance policy and that if something breaks, they can immediately come and fix it, or if not, make sure that you are in a place where stuff can get fixed. It's the worst to have something broken and then it take forever for it to get fixed. I hope y'all all enjoyed my video and I hope y'all had a good day.